for joining. If you're new here, I'm Wendy and this is Nina's Jewels. My husband and I buy things at thrift stores, garage sales, and flea markets to sell online and flip for a profit. If that's content you're interested in, stick around and make sure to hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe with the notification bells on so you can be informed of all of our latest content. Today's video is going to be what sold for the week of February 12th through 18th. All right, guys, let's get started. So the first thing that we sold was a pair of Converse men's All-Stars. They were black on black with a camo lining. They were in almost unworn condition. We had found these at a thrift store. We paid $7.41 and they sold really quickly on best offer for $30. And we got positive feedback. I'm not surprised. They were in like pristine condition. Next up was a pair of boots that we got at that same thrift store on that same trip. They were a pair of 1995 Justin men's lace-up roper. They were in size 10 and they were black leather. They sold for full asking price, but we had done a sale on all like clothing and shoe items during the month of February, so the buyer had applied, I don't remember if it was a coupon or just a discount. Anyway, that discount applied. And so they paid $53.99, which was at the time our full asking price. And we had paid $5 for the boots. And next up was another item that we had gotten at this thrift store at that same trip. It was a lot of 8 or 4 pair of Brooks men's insoles. They were size 9 and they were just replacement inserts. And if you watched our I Found Cinderella's Shoes videos, you saw when I sourced these. I picked them up because I thought they were interesting and I was like, oh, I wonder if these would sell. And then when I had done research on them, I realized that Brooks actually gives away free insoles to anybody who shows proof of purchase for their Brooks shoes. But they currently have that program suspended due to COVID-19. And so I thought, well, I'm gonna go ahead and list these because somebody looking for insoles might not be able to get them elsewhere. And sure enough, they sold really quickly. So that ended up being a good pickup at this time. I don't know that I would pick those up again in the future because normally they give them away free, but timing is everything. So that worked out really well. We sold those for $14.99, which was our full asking price, and we had paid $2. I think originally in the bag there were 5 pair, but one of the pairs seemed a little more used than the other. All the other ones seemed new, and this particular pair seemed used, so we threw 1 pair away. Next up was something I thought was never going to sell, and this is a great example of why we list almost everything that is in usable condition that we come across. This was something that we had gotten at a garage sale in a big bin of sewing notions that they had offered to us for $1. And so our cost on this item was only 6 cents because this bin of sewing notions was chock full of items. And so we averaged out the cost of each individual item in the box as 6 cents. But this particular item was so random, and I thought, how on earth is anybody ever gonna search and locate this item? Although it was really cute and it was a handmade item, I just thought, I don't know that this is ever gonna sell on eBay, but it did. It was in our store for probably 1.5 years, but it did eventually sell. And it was a handmade crocheted heart it was vintage, and it had a typed note in it that said, had like a poem about, it was a gift that you could give to someone who's a special friend. And it had a poem or a saying, something about, you're my special friend and I'm giving you this heart, this handmade heart to signify how special you are. Anyway, that sold for $8.99 and we had paid only 6 cents for it. And it's just a perfect example of why we list everything, especially small items. This item was only, about this big, and eventually it sold and we made a good profit on that. I mean, it wasn't a huge profit, but it didn't really take up any space for us and it was worth it. Next up was an item that belonged to us. It was something we just had an excess of and we didn't need it anymore. It was a full-size waterproof mattress pad or mattress topper. It sold on best offer for $21, and we used it for a while. It was in great condition, and so we considered our cost zero. Next up was something we got in the Goodwill bins. It was it was about this big. It was just a little satin Asian style, like jewelry pouch or coin pouch, you know, something like that you would use maybe for travel for your jewelry. That sold for $9.99, and we had gotten that in the Goodwill bins and paid 67 cents. We got positive feedback on that. Next up was another item we got in the Goodwill bins. It was a pair of men's 2XL. The brand was Rawick. I guess that's how you say it. I'm not sure. But they were ski pants, and those sold for $36 on best offer. We had paid 61 cents for those, but unfortunately those were returned because of a sizing issue. And we gave the buyer a refund and then relisted those. Next up was something that we had in our store for a very long time. Our pictures were not very good because it was back when we didn't have our great lighting set up. But we recently retook the pictures and kind of refreshed the listing, and then it sold very, very quickly after that. But it was a 50-pack plus some additional, a 50-pack of new, and then plus some additional in an open pack of CDRs that looked like records. And they belonged to my husband. He used to, use them to burn CDs on, but that is now kind of obsolete for us, but obviously someone wanted them. So those sold for $23.98, and our cost was zero. They sold on offer to buyer, and we received positive feedback on that. So we were glad that those finally went because they were in our store for a really long time. Next up was something we got at a thrift store. It was a pair of Rock Revival women's jeans. They sold for $30, and we had paid $9.10. This item was featured in our video, Are We in a Reseller Wormhole? Because I had been getting some questions from who I would describe as a potentially difficult buyer during the time when all kinds of crazy things were going on. So I'll link that video above and also in the description below. Next up was a lot of 2 Sonic Wacky Pack kids meal toys. They were out of the package, but they were in good condition. They were just really cool looking. I always think Sonic toys are cool. I don't know, that's my personal opinion, but they were kind of cartoony looking Batman characters. We lotted them together, and they sold for $13.75, and we had gotten them in the Goodwill bins and paid 68 cents. Next up was another item we got in the Goodwill bins, and it was a really nice, pretty sweater, but our pictures were not great. It was kind of on our list of one of the items to retake, but it sold before we got to it. So I would imagine that the buyer probably was happy with it. We haven't received feedback yet because it probably looked a lot better in person than it did in our pictures. But it was a hunter green cable knit cowl neck sweater, and it was branded Neiman Marcus. It sold for $35.98. And actually, I might have said that we got this in the Goodwill bins, but we actually got this at a thrift store, and we paid $2.17, and it sold on offer to buyer. And we have actually been completely reorganizing our inventory room, which we'll show you in an upcoming video. We'll do a tour of it, and we'll show you how we've reorganized everything. And we have taken a picture of everything that was in our old lighting setup. We have taken out of the packaging and retaken all of the pictures. It has been a very laborious process, but it has been worth it because we have already sold so many items that have been in our store for a really long time that I think we're not selling because of poor picture quality. and we've gone in and refreshed some of the listings, refreshed a lot of the prices, and that process has definitely been worth it. So it's been like an inventory update slash organizing of our setup in the other room where we keep all of our inventory. So we're excited to show that to you guys in an upcoming video. So be on the lookout for that. Up next on the sales list is a pair of exercise leggings that belong to me. They were a pair, the brand was 90 Degree by Reflex, and they were just compression yoga leggings that I didn't use anymore because I'm too lazy to work out anymore. But they sold, they only sold for $10.08. I had them in the store forever. So I accepted, I made a really good offer to a buyer and they accepted. And I was excited to have them go out the door and still make a profit. Next up was an Athleta women's small. It was a purple half zip running top. It was really cute. We had gotten that for $24 at a thrift store and we paid $3.78. Next up was a men's brand. The brand was Lachlan. It was a quarter zip cotton sweater. We got that at the Goodwill outlet. We paid $1.41 and it sold on it sold on best offer for $18.50. Next up was a really pretty pair of ruby red patent square toe Stuart Weitzman heels that we got in the Goodwill outlet. And those sold for $31.99 and we had paid $1.50. And next up was another really cool pair of shoes, and I was so confused as to why these weren't selling because they were like really soft, supple gold leather platform Oxfords by Magato, which is based on my research, it wasn't a brand I had ever heard of. I just picked them up because I could tell that they were quality and we had gotten them in the Goodwill bins. And I listed them and I had done some research on them and saw that they had a high, they were expensive. And so I was excited to list them, and apparently when I listed them, I made a mistake in the sizing, which I didn't realize. And then they sat in our store for a really long time and I could not understand why they weren't selling. Well, finally, a really nice buyer reached out to me and said, I think that you have these listed incorrectly because I had the European size and the US size, which didn't match. And so she pointed that out to me and she said, you know, according to the European size, these would fit me, but according to your US size, it's wrong. Can you double check it? So I double checked it and indeed I had the US size wrong. So I let her know and she immediately bought them. She gave us positive feedback. She was really nice about it. I was so excited to have the sale, but you know, frustrated with myself that they sat there for so long and I had made a mistake, but you know, nobody's perfect. So I'm sure there are other mistakes like that in our listings because it's very easy to make a typo, but those sat there forever because of that darn mistake in the listing. And I wondered why they were sitting there for so long, and that's why. But she was happy, and those sold for $49.49 because she was able to use our 10% off coupon, and we had paid $1.41. And those shoes were really, really nice. Next up was an item that we had gotten out of the Facebook Marketplace garbage bags of clothes. So if you had seen from a previous video where I had referenced this, we got the best deal on like 6 garbage bags of clothes. And this sold for $17.98. It was a women's brown goose down filled puffer vest. And we had paid 67 cents and we got positive feedback on that. Next up was an item that we got when we were doing retail arbitrage. We sold, it was a Postman Pat DVD, so it was brand new. And it sold for $9.99 and we had paid 60 cents on clearance. Next up was something that you may have seen in a previous video that we had sourced at the Goodwill bins, and it was 4 brand new in package Crate and Barrel gold star garlands. And I had said, you know, I'm going to go ahead and list them now because we sell Christmas stuff year round, and Crate and Barrel Christmas stuff has a great resale value. And I had gone ahead and priced it, you know, pretty high enough for the price that I had intended to get at Christmas time. And they did sell. I sold it on best offer. So I guess I had probably accepted an offer about 20% off of my price. But, you know, I was happy to go ahead and move that out instead of waiting for Christmas time. So I'll try to link the video where we sourced that up above and in the info below. So that sold for $30 and we had paid 94 cents. So I think that was during our video sourcing before the snowstorm. I'll double check that, but I'll go ahead and link that here. Next up was an item that belonged to my daughter, and it was a Maggie Breen sundress. It wasn't in great condition, so we sold it for kind of low and disclosed it had like kind of one of the little bit of applique that was on the shoulder was kind of loose, and so we disclosed that. But it sold for $9.99, and that was our asking price. Next up was something we got in the Goodwill bins. It was an insulated White Castle. It was called a Crave case. It was basically just an insulated bag, I guess, that you could bring your hamburgers back home in. And I was like, that's not worth anything when my husband picked it up, and he was like, I don't know. I have a feeling some collector would want that. And so I comped it while we were in the Goodwill bins, and sure enough, they were selling for like $40 or $50. So he was right. Like he normally is. I swear that man is always right. He's gonna like this part of the video. But anyway, we sold that for $44.18 and got positive feedback on it, and we had paid $1.50 for it. Let's see, next up was another item we had gotten in the Goodwill bins. It was a lot of 7 piano books, kind of, you know, like a whole set. If you're gonna teach your kid piano, this was the beginner lessons all the way up to, you know, kind of a mid-level. So it was a great set for somebody who was ready to dive in on piano lessons with their child. And they were in good shape. So those sold for $20, and we had paid 92 cents for them at the Goodwill bins. Next up was another item we had gotten at the Goodwill bins. I think this was also from the sourcing before the snowstorm video, but this was, the brand was Rasta and Pasta, and it was an adult beer costume. And this is another example of why we don't wait to seasonally list things, because this is, you know, a Halloween costume. You would normally kind of put this in your death pile and wait to list this till Halloween, but this sold in February, and who knows why. Somebody was looking for a beer costume in February, but they were, and we got, let's see how much we got for it. We got full price for it, $19.99. They paid our asking price for that beer costume, so who knows. Next up was an item that I had picked up in the thrift store. This was in the Cinderella's shoes video, and I could not find any comps on it. I had a feeling about this item. I picked it up because it was interesting to me, and so I knew it would be interesting to somebody else. And it was a 59 by 57 like throw size Rolling Stones quilt. It had all the Rolling Stones album covers on it, and it was screen printed. It wasn't like squares sewn together on the quilt, but and it, you know, it was a modern quilt. It wasn't anything vintage, but it was just neat looking, and I knew that it would be neat looking to somebody else. And it did sell for, let's see, I keep losing my place. Dang it. It sold for $39.99, which was our asking price, and I had purchased that for $4.50. So that's just a great example of going with your gut. Next up was something we had gotten at the flea market. It was a Kobe micro CD system. So it was like a stereo system. It had an AM/FM digital tuner, and then a CD player and speakers. And at the time that this unit sold, I think it was pretty state of the art based on the research that I had done. And it worked when we tested it. It was in really good shape. And so we had paid $5 for it, and it sold for $54.99. and we got positive feedback, which I'm always super relieved on electronics and things like that, because we are very careful when we pack things like this, but I'm always so nervous with shipping because I know how that stuff can sometimes get thrown around. Once we packed a waffle iron so carefully, and the photos that the buyer sent back of us of that waffle iron, which by the way was a very sturdy waffle iron. That waffle iron looked like it had been like literally run over by a truck. So sometimes I really wonder what goes on with the USPS or FedEx or UPS or whatever method we ship it with. I'm like, what exactly happened with that item once it left our hands? Okay, next up was a fun item in so many ways. So this was something that I had been looking for. It was something that I had as a child, and I had such good memories of this item. It was an auto bingo game, and they had these shutter slides, and you would be in the car and you'd be looking for all the things on the bingo game, and you'd close the shutters as you found them, and then you'd try to get bingo when you were driving. And when I was a kid, I thought that was so much fun. Like, that bingo game was the highlight of my road trip. And I could never find that. I always wanted to find it for my children, but my children are older now, they're teenagers. They, to them, like, this auto bingo game would be so lame. So by the time I did eventually find it at a garage sale, it was, too late to enjoy with my children. So I decided to sell it. But I was still so excited to find it at this garage sale. It was like, I have finally found this auto bingo game that I've been looking for so long. So that, just the finding it was like such a joy for me. But then then finding a home for it, and probably somebody else was super excited to have it. Maybe they had it in their childhood. Anyway, we did sell it to someone. Let's see, I've lost my place once again. Let's see. It sold for $13.58, which was on offer to buyer, and we had paid $2 for it. And she was really happy with it. We got the nicest feedback from her, saying it was packed really nicely. She was very satisfied with her purchase. But the strange thing about all of this nice stuff that she said, that it was in the context of a negative feedback. And so I see, I get a notification, or I didn't get a notification, but when I opened my feedback to look at it, I see that I have a negative feedback. And I kept reading it over and over again because I was confused, because it said like so many nice things. It was like, item was packaged very well, very happy with purchase, I am satisfied. And I kept thinking like, but this is negative. It says negative, it's red. And so I kept reading it over and over again. So I thought, okay, how do I handle this? So I reached out to the buyer and said, I see that you've left us negative feedback, but it appears that you are happy with your purchase. I'm going to initiate a feedback revision, and would you please revise your, it appears that you've made a mistake. Would you please, revise your feedback? Well, days go by. I think like 3 days went by and I didn't hear from her. And I'm thinking, what is happening? I can't have this negative feedback on my account. So at that point, after like 3 days, I finally reached out to eBay customer service through the Facebook app requesting assistance. And I explained the whole situation to them. I explained that I had reached out to the buyer and I had not heard back. What assistance could they provide? And they ended up taking the feedback down. Well, like the day after I heard back from eBay customer service, the buyer contacts me and says, oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, I would be happy to revise it. And at that point, I'm like, well, now what do I do? So I responded back to her and said, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I hadn't heard back from you. It had been X number of days. And luckily, eBay was able to step in and revise the feedback on your behalf, because, it was I don't remember exactly what I said, but basically I nicely said it was, damaging to my account. And so eBay was able to step in on your behalf. No further action is required from you at this point, but I'm really glad to know that you were happy with your product. That's of utmost importance to me. Well, I'm thinking like everything's over and done with. Well, then she messaged me back and she was like upset that eBay had taken her negative positive feedback down. And I was like, so she kind of said, so eBay just removed my feedback. I don't remember how she said it, but it was clear that she was upset. So then I was like, well, now what do I do? So I just decided I'm not going to respond. I don't have to respond to her anymore. She's the one that messed up. And I just ended up blocking her and deciding that I was going to be done with it. End of story. So that's how I handled that. I don't know if that was right. Let me know what you would have done in that situation. It was a weird situation, and having that negative feedback, even though it said something positive, just having that say negative and affect my feedback score was really bothersome to me, and I wanted it removed. So if you would have handled that differently, I would like to hear how you would have handled it differently, because I was feeling really confused about what the right steps in that situation would have been. So let me know. All right, next up. Once again, I have lost my place. Okay. Okay, the next thing was a game called The Game of Makin' Bacon. It was a dice game, so it was in a little box. It was like this big. And we had gotten this in the Goodwill bins. We paid $1.50 and it sold on offer to buyer for $8.48. And we got positive feedback on that. Like straight up positive feedback. Next up was a pair of Lucky Brand women's jeans. They were really cute, like high-rise crop jeans. I actually tried them on and thought about keeping them, but they did not look good on me. We had gotten those at the thrift store for $5.86, and they sold for our full asking price of $35.99. Next up was something that we got in the Goodwill bins. We thought it was just a regular old Hot Wheels car, but it turned out to be a special Hot Wheels car. It was a Hot Wheels car that was like an RC car that was part of kind of a racetrack set, and it was a normal, Hot Wheels size car, but it actually was powered by a tiny battery, and you would turn it on and then it would race on the track with the controlled by a remote control. So we sold it as a replacement part, and it sold very quickly for $16.99, and we got positive feedback on it, and we had only paid 67 cents. So that turned out to be a good find. Next up was a vintage Ann Taylor chocolate brown long sleeve bodysuit. Took me back to my high school days. It looked exactly like something that I had in high school. It sold for $26.99, and we had gotten that at a thrift store for $1.62. The buyer paid our full asking price. Next up was a lot of 4 Johnny Rivers records that we had gotten at an estate sale for 30 cents, and they sold for $19.99. Next up was a Chico's Travelers size 2.5 black and white dress. It sold for $25, and we had gotten it at a thrift store, and I don't remember how much we had paid for it, but it had been purchased before and returned. So our all-in cost on this item, because of the shipping and the cost of goods previously, was $13.49. So we might have made like a few cents on it, but pretty much we were just breaking even on this item. But the good news is that I think we got positive feedback on it this second time, so I think we're good to go on this one. It's not getting returned again. Next up was a really nice hand-embroidered sweater vest. It was the brand CJ Banks, and it was a women's plus size. It sold for $25. No, yes, sorry, it sold for $25.19. And we had gotten that at a garage sale for $1. and that sold for our full asking price. Next up was another plus size item. It was a 2X. It was a Coldwater Creek, kind of a layered look, lightweight sweater. It was new with tags. We had gotten that at a garage sale for $2 and it sold for $28.78. Next up was a really nice purple, like kind of a plum colored cashmere, 100% cashmere sweater. The brand was Tweeds, and we had gotten that at a thrift store. We paid $2.16 and it sold for $24.29, which was our full asking price. Next up was a pair of Levi's size 26 Bermuda jean shorts. We had gotten these at the Goodwill outlet for 92 cents and they sold for $20.69, which was our full asking price. We did sell a lot of clothes during our clothes sale, so we'll probably run another one of those in a few months. Next up was a lot of 2 striped acrylic yarn by I Love This Yarn. This sold immediately. We had gotten this during our sourcing trip. That was when we got the Harry Potter Scenic game. I'll link that video up above. That sold for $14.38 and we had paid 67 cents. And we got positive feedback on this and the feedback said, I love this yarn. So that was good. Next up was something we had gotten at the Goodwill bins. It was a Weber Genesis barbecue gas grill igniter, but it wasn't all the parts, like one part of it was missing. So it was just replacement parts. That sold for $14.18 and we had paid 94 cents and that sold on offer to buyer. Next up was one of the vintage Playboy magazines from February 1984 that we had gotten in the big lot of vintage Playboys. We got this through the Nextdoor app. It sold for $9.99, which was a full asking price, and we paid $1.43 per issue for those. Next up was an item that was gifted to me by a family member to sell. It was a kid's paperback book called The Royal Dinner. It sold for $7.99 and our cost was $0, and that it sold for our asking price. Next up was another item that we had gotten at a garage sale. It was a pair of Sigrid Olsen white women's linen pants. Summer's coming up, so that's perfect. That sold for $20 on best offer, and we had gotten that for $1 at a garage sale. Next up was another vintage Playboy magazine from January 1983. That sold for $10.99, full asking price, and our cost was $1.43. And last was another Playboy from February 1976. That sold on offer to buyer for $9.28, and our cost was $1.43. And last, I always go over the collectible cards that we sold. If you've never watched a video of ours before, my husband has a large collection of comic and sports cards, and we have a lot of them listed, but we're still in the process of listing them, and we have tons to go. So we sell these all the time. They sell for the lowest that we ever sell them for is $2.29, and then they go on up from there. So collectively, we make quite a bit of money on them, but each sale, sometimes it seems like change, but when you add it all up, it ends up being quite a bit of money. So this particular week, we sold 24 cards for a total of $64.66. So that wraps up our sales for the week of February 12th through 18th. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe with the notification bells on. All right, we'll see you guys next time. Bye.